How a conservative Jew discovered Jesus and how he's serving the Jewish community, next on Significant Insights. Hello and welcome to the program. Good to have you with us. You know, I've always been a bit passionate about Christianity's Jewish roots and about establishing healthy Jewish-Christian relationships. Well, my guest today feels the same way. Myles Weiss and his wife Catherine have a passion to understand and communicate the shared destiny of Jews and Christians. They co-host Zola Levitt Presents, which airs on our network at the times on your screen. Well, together they founded Beth Shalom, House of Peace in San Rafael, California, and they also lead Beit Abba, a Jewish ministry of the Father's House in Napa, California. When we got together at our KTLN studio last year, we talked about how Myles came to faith and what that has meant for his Jewishness and his future in ministry. I want to talk about you for a bit because you actually, from New York, raised in a conservative, not a reform, a conservative Jewish home. And for those who may not know, a reformed Jew may or may not be really kosher.
Correct.
Conservative. You're one kosher dude.
Well, I was living in a kosher home.
Yeah.
My heart apparently was not kosher because when I met Yeshua, Jesus, at 33, Jesus made me kosher.
First of all, how did that happen? And second of all, what happened in terms of relationship? Because Jewishness is more than a religion.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a whole culture. It's a life.
Absolutely. You know, I was raised among Holocaust survivors. We had friends that had the tattoo on their arm. There was no question that that was the unspoken horror of the recent past. My home was a kosher home. I had two Jewish mothers, my grandmother and my mother, which may be why I became a psychotherapist, I'm not sure. But we had a kosher home, but we were, you know, rough around the edges, I would say. I went to Hebrew school 3 days a week till my bar mitzvah. And at 33...
Did you bar mitzvah? Well, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you did. Yeah,
in fact, I found out later when I became a believer and a disciple, I went on the internet and said, what did I say May 2nd, 1964? And of course the rolls are all there. So someone got back to me, are you Ashkenazi, a European Jew, or are you Sephardic, a Mediterranean Jew? I said, I'm Ashkenazi. I'll get back to you Monday. I sang the Haftarah, the Torah, the prophetic portion from Ezekiel 44 verses 15 to 31, which speaks about the sons of Zadok, the sons of righteousness, Tzaddik, will go into the Lord, minister to the Lord, and then come back out and minister to the people.
Wow.
Now, how is that even possible?
Well, no, but let me ask a question about that. When you say you wanted to know what you said, was it on record?
All the records are kept. The Torah portions are cyclical.
Of you specifically?
No,
Or
not of me.
general?
Yes. The
Of what you
Torah
would say.
portion,
Okay,
correct.
I got it.
What was read in every synagogue that Saturday. So any child that was being bar mitzvah that Saturday would have read those portions.
That's
and mine was about becoming a minister.
So how did that happen?
Well, I fell in love. I met this wonderful girl. You may have met her, I think you have. And she told me on our first coffee date, I like you, but I'm in love with another. And I was very disheartened. I had no idea what she meant. She said, Jesus is my Lord and Savior.
Wow.
I said, well, I don't know what that means. I was basically a Hindu Buddhist running from everything at the time. I thought I was a seeker. And she said, I'll shout it from the housetops. And I said, just don't shout it in this restaurant. I'm a regular here.
And don't shout it to my family, please.
Right. But I was very fortunate. My family, they already knew something about this. My mom, from her Florida apartment, she knew about people discipling and talking to the little Jewish old ladies about the Bible and about Yeshua. So I had it much easier than some of my friends. In fact, my mom and my sister became believers before they left the earth.
Really?
Yeah, so I've been really blessed.
Well, it was a blessing because a lot of time, in a, especially conservative Jewish home, you're out.
Yes.
You're no longer accepted as part of the family.
Right, and that's the conflict for Jewish followers of Jesus, is that we're kind of an odd duck to the Jewish community, or an outcast, and we don't really fit in the church all the time either. So we're kind of a hot potato, no one's sure what to do with us.
So after a period of time, you became involved in a ministry.
Yes.
to the Jewish community.
Yes.
And you've been doing that for a number of years.
Long time.
But at the same time, you work among the Christian community.
Absolutely.
Why is it important?
We
for
really
Christians
believe
really to understand the Jewish roots of this.
That's the perfect question. Thank you. We really believe that just as the first doctrinal issue in Acts 15 was, can the Gentiles be saved? Do the Gentiles need to be circumcised and become Jewish to follow Jesus? The doctrinal issue today is, do I become a Gentile when I become a follower of Jesus?
Or
now,
to some Christians, can Jews be saved?
Correct.
Which is sort of a twist on the,
it
on
is,
the early church, isn't
since
it?
this is essentially a Jewish deal that started with only Jews until Acts chapter 10, when the house of Cornelius, God in his mercy, brought the message to the Gentile world. And when I became a believer, I was told by church leaders, okay, you were a Jew, now you're a Christian, don't become a Judaizer. Well, it took me a number of years to figure out that I was still trying to deal with the Gentilizing of the church, because the church has become, because of demographics and doctrinal issues, become a largely Gentile environment, but the root is Jewish. And what's happening now in the world that's so exciting is that many church people are beginning to ask, where do we come from? You know, what is this connection? And is there a connection to our Jewish roots that doesn't compromise our faith and isn't weird and sentimental and full of the accoutrement of Jewishness, you know, but really has a substantive spiritual root?
Yeah.
And that question is out there now, and it's wonderful to be part of it.
Is it difficult to get? I mean, some pastors just get it. I mean, they understand it. A lot of pastors do not. And because of all of the controversy, and because of the turning away, the rejection, really, of Jewishness from a lot of the mainline church,
right?
A lot of pastors today are really a little bit intimidated to deal with it.
Intimidated, or speaking very frankly, some of them have been burned by a weird version of the Messianic life and an imposition to, okay, you know, everybody cancel Christmas and this, you know, no more Easter, and just like too much too soon, too fast, and largely irrelevant versions of what this one new man message is. The one new man of Ephesians 2 speaks about the middle wall of partition being broken down and the Jew and the Gentile becoming one. Well, my wife and I, she became my wife, we have seen this in our life, and we thought, how do we do this in a way that is entreating to pastors and is inviting? I like this, entreating to pastors and inviting to the Jewish people. So we began Beth Shalom, the house of peace, in our home. When it got up to about 85 people, we moved to a local congregation where I had been pastoring. And
you've been doing that, and now there's, if I understand it correctly, in the Bay Area, there are a group of pastors that cooperate. And
in fact, several years ago, I took 40 of them to Israel. From 20 different backgrounds, 40 pastors and leaders from 20 different denominational backgrounds came with me to Israel. This is a little short message about that, a DVD on what happened to them, and it was phenomenal. The question is, how much will pastors embrace this? Do they see it as irrelevant or threatening, or do they really see it as part of what God is doing right now in the earth? Some pastors get it, and some it's very difficult. Some of them get it by revelation. I think about the pastors I work with here in the Bay Area. Art Greco is hosting us now at local church, Marin Covenant. Caleb Kling hosted us for a long time, where I pastored with him at New Life. And now Dave Patterson at the Father's House has given us a place. We call it Beit Abba, the Father's House. And he received, I would say, I don't know how to say it other than a spiritual download that we need to be involved in Jewish ministry. We need to be connected more in Israel and to Israel through Jewish ministry locally. And it's a homing instinct that's in every Jewish person. We can deny it as long as we want, but it's now growing in pastors, and I'm grateful for that, because as you know, there are entire denominations that are going the exact opposite direction.
When we come back, we'll talk about the benefits of visiting the Holy Land right after this.
But when a Jewish person sees a former Muslim who has come to know Jesus, it's as if we've seen the face of God.
Welcome back. Today, Myles Weiss of Zola Levitt Presents and I are talking about Christianity's Jewish roots and the anti-Semitism we see growing around the world. Over the 40 years of our ministry, TLN has sponsored a lot of trips to Israel with our viewers. And as we begin part two, we talked about the importance of believers visiting the Holy Land at least once in their lifetime. Why is it important for pastors, Christians for that matter, to make a pilgrimage at some point in their life to Israel?
Well, you know, about 4 years ago, we started co-hosting Zola Levitt Presents. Zola was one of the pillars in the Western world, modern Western world. I say that Moishe Rosen took it to the streets with the Jews for Jesus, and Zola took it to the airwaves.
Look, I've been in Christian television for a long time,
Yes.
and from the very beginning, all the way from the station I manage in Dallas, we always had Zola Levitt. So now we have your program.
And thank you, by the way, for putting us on in the Bay Area. This is a very Jewish community, and so we're blessed to be part of KTLN and to see the message going out in the Bay Area.
Well, we're blessed to have you.
Oh, thank you. But Zola, you know, he said, and I love this phrase, he said, a trip to Israel is worth 10 years of Sunday school. It's a very...
I've been over 20 times, so I would agree with that.
Right, and so the way I explain it to people is the Bible, which has been black and white on the page, becomes technicolor.
Yeah.
If you have the right situation, the right guides, the right leaders, and guides, hosts, pastors, if you have the right situation, the Bible becomes alive in a way that it never has been before. You see past CNN, which we call in Israel certainly not the news. We go past CNN and we begin to see the people, the life, the history, the connection. Again, the word organic comes to mind. This supernaturally natural thing that God did in this particular place with this particular people, including the most important thing he did, which is to bring the Messiah.
Years ago, I was at a conference from a considered itself Middle East Center for Studies and so forth, part of a college campus, which is really a very pro-anti-Israel organization. And one of the speakers got up, who was a Christian, and said, I don't know why so many people want to go to Israel, the Holy Land. You know, I don't understand that. And when it was my time to get up and speak, I said, you know, one of the speakers said he didn't know why people wanted to go to the Holy Land. I said, Christians. I said, you know, it's not rocket science. Those are our roots. As Christians, those are our roots. My question would be, why wouldn't a Christian want to go to the Holy Land?
Right, and you know by personal experience.
I was not the most popular speaker there.
And that's not the most popular message these days. You know, we are always looking, maybe it's my counseling background, I don't know, but we're always looking for places of reconciliation. That's why we've helped an Arab Christian church in Bethlehem. We gave them a sound system so they could preach the word in East Jerusalem and in Bethlehem. I was trying to get through security with it, and you know, they said, what is this? I said, well, it's a sound system. Who's it for? It's for the Arabs. What are you going to do with it? Well, they're going to preach love instead of hate. Pass right on through. But we are always working with the cousins. I have this.
You know, I like what you just said. You said that before, and I was going to comment on it. You like your cousins. That's true.
Yeah.
That is very true.
That's why one of the main messages I have is healing the family feud, because that's what we're looking at. You know, in Genesis 32, something happened to Jacob when he was changed to Israel. But by Genesis 33, something happened to Esau, because when Jacob fearfully was coming back to see Esau, he said, I looked at him and it's as if I had seen the face of God.
Yeah.
Something happened to Esau, and we're seeing that today. We have this is our a New York Jew, a California Catholic, and a Bethlehem Muslim together in the Lord. How does that happen? It happens because of a work of love. And we're seeing that more and more. But when a Jewish person sees a former Muslim who has come to know Jesus, it's as if we've seen the face of God.
What's happening today, because we're at a crisis point, I think, in the United States, with our leadership, and if not a turning its back on Israel, close.
It's a phenomenon that 2 years before the 2008 election, my friends in Israel were saying to me jokingly, be careful you don't become an abomination. And the point was, be aware of a rising leadership that is going to be anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, anti-Jewish. and we're seeing that. I have great hope for this country. I have my friend Waleed Shobat, he's a former PLO terrorist, right? And he says, Myles, the remnant in America is important enough to God and strong enough with God that he's not going to let this nation turn its back on Israel. And I said, Waleed, my Arab cousin, my brother, my friend, you have more confidence than I do in the way this is going. Part of my lack of confidence is what I see in my own Jewish people here. We are the most likely suspects to turn against Israel, having never been there, just going by media or by the filtered media that we get in this nation.
Well, but we see a developing anti-Semitism on college campuses, especially Ivy League campuses.
Yes.
With all the political correctness and so forth. Is it a prophetical thing?
I think there's a timing aspect to it. People ask all the time, are we seeing the last days? Are we seeing this as the outplaying of prophecy? I think it is. The timing, of course, I don't know. I joke about it, but I no longer know the dates and times. My son, when he was at college, he started Emet, which is the Hebrew word for truth. The acronym was Education for Middle East Transformation, because he was bringing speakers from Sderot and Ashkelon and from these places that were under rocket fire to at least push back against the anti-Israel propaganda. But it is widespread on the American campuses. And you know the Santayana quote about those who don't know their history are condemned to repeat it. These children, these 20-somethings, very few of them have a real understanding of the love story of the Bible or of the last 100 years of history.
But you know the absolutely stunning thing about this, in Germany, for example, there was rising anti-Semitism again in Germany. And the Jews had lived peacefully. There were, in fact, they have contributed to the German economy, to German life and so forth. And all of a sudden, now the Germans are overwhelmed with the refugees who already are taking to the streets in Germany. And there is great unrest in Germany about what's going to happen because they're now overwhelmed by the Islamics that they, for all practical purposes, had been supporting and had the anti-Semitic influence. You look at that and say, has the world gone mad?
Do you want a one-word answer? I mean, we are looking at a situation that is similar to Germany 1939, only worldwide now, because there are genuine refugees coming in, genuine people suffering from the balagan, we say,
but it's
the
also
mess.
A pipeline for terrorists.
Correct. It's a Trojan horse. There is a strong number of jihadists that are coming into Europe through this refugee crisis.
And unless we're careful, exactly the same thing is going to happen here.
Well, we're opening the doors.
Be sure to check out Myles and his wife Catherine as they host Zola Levitt Presents on TLN and KTLN at the times on your screen. Final thoughts on worry right after this.
Have you been in a situation before where you were bugged, you were attacked, you were bothered by something, and finally that thing crossed the line?
Welcome back. Today we talked about the serious issue of the rise of anti-Semitism. Well, you know, the truth is there's always going to be very real threats in our world, threats to our individual life and safety, as well as to entire people groups. So how do we handle the tension that exists between that reality and a biblical point of view where we're instructed not to be anxious over anything? Roy Patterson, worship leader and special assistant to the president of Moody Bible Institute, talks about worry in today's Final Thoughts.
2013, I went to the Holy Land. My wife and I walked where Jesus walked. We saw the Sea of Galilee. Actually, we're on a boat. It was just a wonderful time. The place where Jesus gave the Beatitudes. We were so impressed with that trip that it's inspired us down through the years. One place we went that I didn't anticipate, it was called Yad Vashem. It's the Holocaust Museum. It's the place where we saw horrific scene after horrific scene. One thing stuck out. It was the story of some people that came from Poland to America, and they were rejected because our country didn't want to be involved in the war. Although the president was striving with all that was in him to get us involved, it wasn't until that fateful day when those planes and those bombs hit Pearl Harbor. Well, at that point, America said, this means war. Have you been in a situation before where you were bugged, you were attacked, you were bothered by something, and finally that thing crossed the line? For me, the thing is worry. Have you ever worried before? It just got you upset? Someone has said worry is the bad side of imagination. I want to tell you about a man who decided to write some words that have been helpful to me, and I got a feeling they'll be helpful to you too. His name is Paul. Paul was a guy that went through trials, tribulations, struggles, in prison for his faith. He was bitten by snakes. He was shipwrecked. This guy had the nerve to say, be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. He gives us at least 3 weapons so that we can war effectively against worry. First one is pray. He said, come on, you ought to pray without ceasing. You need to seek the Lord. Can I give you an acronym for pray? Because maybe you struggle with prayer the way I do. The P stands for praise. The R stands for repent. The A stands for ask. And the Y stands for yield. I think if you follow that motto, you'll be encouraged, you'll be inspired, and you'll stay on task. Another weapon, of course, is magnifying praise. When you think of all the good things God has done for you, come on, be reminded that the same God that brought you safe thus far is going to lead you on. Jehoshaphat went into battle, not so much with guns and knives and machetes and 9mm. He went in with a spirit of praise, and it annihilated the other army. Instead of worrying about things, praise God for where he's brought you from. Finally, the last PR is practice. Paul said, put into practice those things that you've seen me do. Paul was a worker. Paul was honest. He was truthful. I can't tell you that life is a bed of roses and you just walk around with rose-colored glasses as if everything is okay. No, you cannot do that. But what you can do is work on the thing you've been worrying about. Man, pray about it. Praise God about it. And then put into practice. Take the necessary steps to adjust your environment. No matter what happens, my brother, my sister, God is the God of all flesh. And with him, nothing is impossible. Thank you for joining me on Significant Insights.
I really like what Roy was talking about with worry. And, you know, there is a direct correlation between our relationship with Christ and our trust in God and our worry. Because the more we trust God, the more we have a tendency to not worry. Because we put all of our faith and our trust in a God who knows all of our circumstances and who is helping us through every one of those. Not that we're not going to have problems, but that God is going to help us through all of those. One more comment I'd like to make about Israel. I really recommend that every Christian at one time or another in their life visit the Holy Land. It is incredible. I've been there a number of times. It's incredible what happens in terms of being able to relate to Bible stories and relate to where Jesus walked and really understand what that means once you've been there and you see the land and you see the distances from place to place, and then you come back and you read the Bible and all of a sudden images come to mind, places come to mind, a land comes to mind, and it's easier to get a grasp of who Jesus was and what he did and of really what our faith means to us with that visit. So I really would recommend that at some time in your life, you make sure you visit the Holy Land. Thanks for joining us. God bless you. See you next time.